Today, Donald Trump railed against his conviction while President Biden called those comments irresponsible and said the verdict shows no one is above the law. I want to know, how do you think this verdict will impact the election? And the first thing I want you to do, Danny, because there's all these people out there who think he's a convicted felon, he must not be allowed to run anymore. That is not the case. Explain.
There are exactly 3 qualifications in the Constitution to be the president, and we cannot add to nor delete those qualifications. So none of those include or have anything to do with being a felon or even being charged with a crime. And there is precedent. We have had a candidate run for office really from a jail cell, not a candidate with any real chance of winning. Donald Trump is the first ever to be convicted and run. And what is still an open constitutional question is whether a president can be jailed and whether a president can run the country from a jail cell. We don't know the answer to that. We have tons of people like me with opinions about it, but we really don't know until it happens.
We're willing to find out.
There is no felony disqualification for running for president. Of course, there is impeachment. You can impeach a president if you can connect that crime to something in the office. But no, a convicted felon can run.
You have to impeach and convict.
Correct.
Impeach and convict, and then the removal is automatic upon conviction.
John, how do you think the verdict will impact the election?
It's almost impossible to tell, because I think this will be ancient history by November. I think America has the collective attention span of the guy from Memento, and something that happened way back in the end of May will be a distant memory by the time we're in the month of October. I think that there's a very good chance the first presidential debate in June will have more of an impact than this ruling. I just don't know of any citizens whose minds will be changed by this. After he stole from veterans with a fraud online university and mocked a disabled guy, I don't know who's going to... Oh, well, now I really don't like him. After 6 Star Wars movies, I'm ready to say Darth Vader's the bad guy. I think people's minds are made up. There may be some Nikki Haley supporters who this will nudge them to vote. But at the end of the day, I think this election may wind up being not so much Biden-Trump. It may be Trumpism versus not Trumpism.
I think John's right about that. I don't think you can tell how this is going to affect the election. I also think we do have a very short collective attention span. I had Jen Palmieri on the air today, and she was arguing, I was surprised by this, she was arguing to take Donald Trump's comments live more, to let him talk on television more. The exact opposite argument that Democrats made in 2016 when they said you took Donald Trump too much, you gave him too much airtime and too much attention. Now they're saying no, have him out there reminding people what he sounds like, how he goes off on these tangents, how he makes no sense, how he's always railing against immigrants and sounding, in their words, bonkers. They'll use a different B word, but they'll say bonkers. I'll say bonkers. That will remind voters that Donald Trump is erratic and chaotic, and he was not a good president. And it was exhausting having him in the White House, waking up every day to a flood of tweets on your phone. What did he say last night? What war might he start? They think more of Donald Trump, not less, is better, and that will collectively change people's minds up until November.
This takes me exactly to my next question.
I'm great at transitions.
There is a group of people who do not want that to happen, and they're not Democrats. They are mega-rich GOP donors who have said, even in the last 2 weeks, yes, we're going to back you, Donald Trump. I want to talk to you about this, Tim, because a year and a half ago, lots of them, especially Wall Street ones, they were hot on DeSantis, they were hot on Nikki Haley, and they collectively said, we're upset about January 6th, we're done with Trump, all the baggage, and we have seen them in the last month, even in the last 48 hours, start to line back up next to him. After the verdict, I went through the phone, I was calling donor after donor, Wall Street guy after Wall Street guy. None of them are fazed. Is this because they are transactional and they know he is as well? And at this moment when he's down, he's keeping score. He's going to see exactly who was with him. And in 6 months, if he's the next president, all of these super powerful guys are going to have even more power, not just, oh, we're going to get the corporate tax cut extended or carried interest loophole is preserved. They are going to have a bat phone into the White House to get whatever the hell they want. And if you are Elon Musk, if you are Steve Schwartzman, if you are Nelson Peltz, that is worth gold.
Which he already, he's already promised that to oil lobbyists.
Just 2 weeks ago. Give me $1 billion and I'll give you what you want.
I'll get wherever you need me to go. I think there's only really 2 issues that the people funding Donald Trump from the financial community and from the business community care about, especially the ones who are leading the collection services. it's lower taxes and deregulation, and it ends there. And it's because those most directly affect the health of their businesses and their wallets. In the same way that flip-flopping Republicans who once said they'd have nothing to do with him are now lining up behind him because he has that kind of sway and gravity within the GOP. You're not going to be able to get through in the current era a primary without some nod from Donald Trump.
But Tim, it's even more than that. You run a big business. At any point, you got the SEC, you got the FTC on your ass, and you know in the next term you can call DJT and say, yo, I don't want to take this call, and he'll fix it for you. And
he'll try to fix it for you. It won't be that easy, but he'll try to do it.
Well, Joe Biden certainly won't do it for you.
The other thing that is worth focusing on here is that the business community should care about long-term economic growth and widespread prosperity. It helps them. It helps their children. It helps all of them in myriad ways.
Yeah, good luck. We live in a world of short-termism.
You mean what they've had for 27 months?
Everything that he's proposing undermines that. He's got inflationary policies. Yeah. Everything he wants to do will add to the deficit. It doesn't give us a more educated middle-class American population. Everything that he wants to do is ultimately, in the long term, against the interests of the business community. But in the short term, it pads their wallets.
But it goes to ultimate power, right? Elon Musk is the best example, right? Wall Street Journal was reporting it this week. He's potentially putting together, some sort of partnership, a coalition. He'll go out and raise money for Trump. Look at Joe Biden's policies. Pro-electric vehicles. That's great for Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Donald Trump, anti-electric vehicles. Donald Trump's #1 arch nemesis is China. That's Elon Musk's great next frontier. I'm not even talking about the extraordinary stock market, yet Elon Musk is now Donald Trump's homeboy. If that's not about ultimate power, I don't know what is.
Well, Elon Musk, let's be fair. I mean, the thing I like best about Joe Biden is how many evil billionaires despise him. That's been really encouraging to me. And oligarchs are going to oligarch and get behind a guy like Trump. I think Elon Musk is a bit of an outlier because he seems much more concerned with being the Joe Rogan of billionaires to dude bros than actually being a successful businessman at this point. He seems much more focused on his own popularity and being adored by people, sort of like a Republican presidential nominee, I could point out.
Should we be alarmed when things are so blatant? I'm certainly not saying the White House is for sale, but when you're seeing, whether it's the meeting with the oil execs, when you're suddenly seeing business people whose policies...
Stephanie, aren't you saying that? Aren't you saying the White House is for sale? That I will do what you want me to do.
He solicited a bribe.
Which it was during his first term. It was during his first term. There was a shingle on the White House.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that's true. That is a major concern, that the White House is for sale. And he signaled that during his first term. So I don't know why anyone would be that surprised. We were talking about this earlier, that there was this hope in 2016 that the White House would change him. And we already know what we got. We know what we got for 4 years, so there won't be any surprise that